This is an RNZ podcast.
A very good evening to you, Mediawatchers Hayden Donnell.
Kia ora, Emil.
How are things?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Have you ever...
I'm never convincing when I say that, am I?
No, well, I mean, I suppose it's because you don't... Is it because you don't want to say how things really are?
Well, no, they are actually good. We went on a family holiday to Whitianga, and when I say family, I mean my entire nuclear family, including my three brothers and all their children.
Cool. Whitianga's
and
cool.
My parents.
Whitianga's a beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, it's great in a cyclone as well.
Oh, yeah.
Ex-cyclone.
Yes.
And so that's 17. There's 17 of us, so there's like 10 adults.
What?
7 children. So it's pretty intense.
That is intense.
Yeah. Good, though.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's talk media, shall we?
Should do.
You wanted to start with the big news of the week, the death of the Pope Francis.
Yes, and Dan News, the news hound, put together a nice montage of various TV networks breaking the news of the Pope's death.
Amazingly quickly after the news was announced.
I honestly don't know.
It was like 10 minutes after it was announced.
It seems like he's always it's like a Black Mirror episode. Every news channel is playing in either his brain or on a TV somewhere near him at all times, and he records them all and puts them all together. It takes a matter of seconds. But anyway, I thought perhaps the most jarring one that he noted came from Fox News.
This started before Trump took office. It shouldn't be all on Marco Rubio to act.
And this is a Fox News alert. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer live from New York. Somber news from the Vatican, especially following Easter Sunday, with word of Pope Francis has died.
Slight whiplash there, straight out of yelling about Marco Rubio into the news of the death of the Pope.
I hadn't listened to that clip ahead of time, and I thought that they were defending Trump against accusations that he had something to do with the death of Pope Francis for a second.
No, very separate events that they're talking about there. That was them cutting into a separate discussion.
These breaking news events, they used to be quite unifying, didn't they, Hayden? We would all gather around the television.
And take in the news. There was so many fewer sources of news.
That's true.
Right? And it just made me reflect on it. Like, I learned about this news event through a retweeted tweet from the AFP, which is a news service, which I then shared in a group chat. So several of my friends learned about it via a retweeted tweet that I put in a group chat on Facebook Messenger. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, these events are when legacy news is at its best. It provides this accurate and comprehensive coverage, far more accurate and comprehensive than social media still, but they can also be a bit of a reminder of how much more fragmented the media landscape is, how much more diverse our news sources have become. Really, these used to be, even when I was at the Herald back 12 years ago, I don't know, the Christchurch earthquakes happened, everyone went to the Herald for their news, and that would probably still be the case in large extent, but nowhere near to the same extent, I think.
What did you make of the legacy news coverage? Because, of course, it is one of those interesting... I mean, it's always a bit jarring talking about a public figure's death as a story, but it is a story from the news media's point of view. But there's a dual story going on in the background, right? Which is sort of the Pope is dead. Who is the new Pope going to be? And
it's got these, because it's the Catholic Church, it has this element of pageantry to it, and there is this strange and intriguing tradition around how the new Pope is chosen, and that's not just the reality. That process has also been catalogued quite a lot in pop culture. You just think Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code, and all that sort of thing. It's a world event that people have consumed in the past through the vision of, I don't know, Tom Hanks hooning around Rome in a tiny, tiny car in a movie. So we've got the obituaries and the reflections on the death of an important world figure, and it's interspersed with moments like this one from Morning Report.
Libby says, I'm here for the smoke. So this is this quite dramatic smoke that comes out, white smoke, when a pope's been chosen, isn't it, Paddy, with the, it was in that Conclave movie, which I haven't seen. Have you seen that?
Look, Ingrid, I actually have. Believe it or not, I watched it on Saturday night.
That was interesting. Did you think, because there was a lot of focus on the pageantry and the bells and whistles of this kind of process, what did you make of that? The focus on the smoke and the Pope Mobile and things like that, given that this is about the death of a major world leader.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring, right? I talked to Colin. Colin's like, maybe it should be done with more gravitas. And I kind of do agree that this is the death of someone that is really important to literally billions of people around the world. He's the leader of a religion that actually numbers in the billions.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think it's pretty human to sort of speculate on these strange things and to consume these events through your own frame of reference, which might be informed by pop culture, and you might talk about that. And that doesn't mean that you don't treat this seriously necessarily. It just means that, I mean, everything is a mixture. I don't want to seem philosophical, Emil, but the world is a kaleidoscope of light and dark, isn't it? The funny and the profane and the serious and the sad. It's all got to go in there. And sometimes you got Paddy Gower talking on Morning Report about the movie Conclave, which incidentally came out on Prime Video in the US today.
Really?
Does that seem cynical to you? I saw someone saying the marketing for this movie is absolutely wild.
Oh, God.
Look, I think it is possibly a coincidence.
You'd hope
but
so.
a very convenient one. Maybe cynical if it's not.
It can. Well, I suppose the world is a strange place. Donald Trump had some interesting things to say about the death of the Pope.
This is the thing. We're talking about whether we're treating this event with the requisite sober and reflection, but then the world itself is so strange. For instance, you had Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump there's a lot of strange things that go on, but there was this message that he delivered about the Pope, and I have to paint a picture for you. He delivered it next to a full-size human being dressed in a head-to-toe Easter bunny suit.
Head-to-toe.
Head-to-toe. It's a full Easter bunny suit. Here's the clip.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man. Worked hard. He loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
He did love the world. It's an honor to do that. I cannot emphasize enough that there was a person in an Easter bunny suit standing next to Donald Trump as he delivered that somber message about the Pope.
And it's a proper committed Easter bunny suit.
Yeah, it's a full brown sort of suit. It is a rabbit. I've put it as a picture for this week's Midweek Mediawatch, so you can go online and look at it if you want.
And yet somehow that was not even, well, it wasn't even really close to being the most unusual news clip of the week, Hayden.
No, Emil, I think that prize goes to another one, and it was about an armed hold-up that unfolded in Australia, and that might not sound like internationally significant news, but the resulting interview with two eyewitnesses is really something spectacular.
Two sisters have told how their mother and man raced to help when the carjacked SUV rolled on Steve Irwin Way, only to find the gun-wielding car thief emerging from the wreck. Here's some of what they had to say.
And one guy, he was up there with our mum, and he went up there and he was coming back down towards us, and he goes, "Run, he's got a gun." And our heart started to pound, and I said, "Oh, Mum, where's Mum?" And poor Mum was stuck up there, but apparently our brave Mum, she goes, "Are you all right?" Because he had all blood all over his face.
Hayden, you're going to have to explain that one a little bit.
No, yeah.
Because people might think, well, that just sounds like the audio tracks maybe for the video got a bit mixed up and they copied them.
There was not a sound editing fail. It was no technological mishaps involved in that. That was, again, the visuals are a huge part of this clip, Emil. It's two identically dressed, identical twins speaking in unison. And it's quite something to behold, I have to say. And the news channel that did report this, just completely matter-of-factly, they didn't even...
Yeah.
I think it was a perfect way to report it, really, to not even note the fact that this is two people saying the exact same thing in unison, totally synced up. Just air it like it's a normal thing.
Do you know, have you done some investigation into this? Is it a joke? Is it real?
Well, I saw the people saying this must be a joke, and that's because it is quite similar to an SNL, Saturday Night Live skit, where the two hosts speak in unison, but it's not a joke. It's not anything. It's not faked for the cameras. It does appear that these twins, Paula and Bridget Powers, have been speaking in unison for years. So, for instance, decades ago, Steve Irwin, famous Steve Irwin, conservationist, he discovered them speaking in unison, comforting a turtle, and he got involved. He employed them at his Australia Zoo. He helped them start their business, 20 seabird and pelican rescue. This has been going on for some years. So here's Piers Morgan interviewing them on British morning TV 8 years ago.
Do you feel like you are really one person?
Sometimes we do feel like just one person. Yes, we do.
What? Your reaction is quite similar to what Piers Morgan's was, actually. I've always compared you to Piers Morgan.
Thank you. Hey, that's an honour. All right. Gee, that's a strange story, isn't it? Let's talk about RNZ, which is in the media as well as being part of the media, because RNZ took some heat, it's fair to say, from Winston Peters this morning.
Yeah, Winston Peters was on RNZ's morning report, and it was to talk about a new members' bill that New Zealand First is putting forward aimed at defining woman as essentially a essentialist biological sex, so trying to exclude trans women from the legal definition of a woman. And the interview was fractious from the start, but it became more and more heated as it went along, and it's sort of the went off the rails a bit when Corin Dan began asking Winston Peters what I thought were pretty legitimate questions about how some of the things that New Zealand First wants would work.
How would they prove it? How would they be challenged? It would have to be, what? Do they have to have a special gender passport or something?
No. When you mean they would not be challenged in their lifestyle until they want to walk into a toilet they don't belong in because they are male. Or they want to go onto the rugby paddock or some sporting situation or the boxing gym.
And how would they have to prove that? That's what I'm saying. This would be intrusive, wouldn't it? You would have to, have a chromosome test or something?
Yes, so Winston Peters, New Zealand First, has said quite a few times that they want to stop trans people from going into bathrooms or sports events that don't correspond to their biological sex. Mm-hmm. Corin Dan asking, how is that actually going to work? How
would this be enforced?
What's going to happen? And it's a very legitimate question.
Are you expecting bars to carry portable chromosomes?
Exactly. What are you doing? You're doing a scan somehow. Mm-hmm. Anyway, after that, Winston Peters definitely started attacking the messenger.
Well, in what way did he start attacking the messenger? Corin really got it, didn't he?
Yeah, he really got it. He got accused of being a wokester. He got accused of bias, and it all ended with this exchange where Winston Peters threatened RNZ's funding.
I'm sorry, you're not going to accuse me of putting up their arguments and believing in them. I'm the devil's advocate here, and I put up the argument for you to answer.
I thought your job was to hear both sides of the story.
It is, and if anyone who looks at this interview will see that is exactly what I've been doing, and I'm trying to get you to answer that question.
You're doing most of the talking, aren't you? The fact is you're paid for by a taxpayer, and sooner or later we're going to cut that water off too because you're an abuse on the taxpayer.
Yeah, we're going to cut that water off too, he said. Now, that came after Corin Dan actually put some criticisms that Labour and the Greens have made over Winston Peters and New Zealand First's bill to Winston Peters, and Winston Peters took exception to that.
And, well, I mean, it's pretty remarkable to threaten even offhandedly the public broadcasters funding, but this is a bit of a tried and true tactic.
Well, there are sort of other examples where he's attacked the potential independence or the editorial direction of the person that has offended him in the interview. So the example that springs to mind is Jack Tame interviewing him in October 2023 on Q&A, and that ended with Winston Peters saying, this has given me an incentive to take the broadcasting portfolio and make sure TVNZ has what he called a much improved operation after the election. I don't think that came to pass, but Jack Tame interpreted that as a threat as well.
Yeah, and I think, people might say it's just a joke. He's got a twinkle in his eye when he's saying this and sort of a smile playing around the edges of the mouth, but
there was venomous, though. You may, like on Twitter today, X, he called Corin Dan an arrogant wokester loser. I don't know how many times you've called someone an arrogant wokester loser with a little bit of a twinkle in your eye, but it's hard to pull off, I'd say. There's something acidic about some of this stuff.
It's actually how you were saved in my smartphone.
Oh, okay. So when I do text,
I'm sorry, I
comes up.
couldn't resist.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist. Sorry, continue.
Okay, well, that's good to know there. I mean, his allegation that Corin Dan was acting unprofessionally or acting with a sort of a bias. I saw Thomas Coughlan talking about this in the Herald today, and he said, no, well, actually, it is the interviewer's job to put different sides and different arguments to someone and to challenge them with counter-arguments. And this was really, I mean, Corin Dan called it being the devil's advocate. I think that's possibly a little bit of a strange bit of terminology there. I'm not sure that the Greens and Labour are necessarily the devil, but definitely, he is definitely trying to put other arguments to Winston Peters. Yeah. And that's his job. And Winston Peters took exception to it. I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. If you listen to Corin Dan or Ingrid Hipkiss interviewing Chris Luxon or Chris Hipkins, you will get the same sort of things. And you do get it a little bit more. You do get a bit more challenged when you have proximity to power, when you're in the government, when you're a minister, when you're the Prime Minister. And that might be the case. But I don't think that was evidence of anything that Corin Dan was doing wrong. And
well, what did you make of his... Like, I've seen a lot of people say this, that they haven't sort of heard Corin like that before.
Yes, it seemed... I found it quite remarkable that he did just get, in a very human way, quite angry about it. And
Having
I've seen a lot of people, when Jack Tame interviewed him, he was so determined to keep his composure, to not give in to it. But it was interesting to see someone go in the other direction and just deal with it in a human level, rather than as you trying to rise above it and be the perfect journalist. In some ways, I kind of appreciated it, because if someone treated you like that in real life, then you possibly would act like that.
Has RNZ said anything?
They've defended Corin Dan's interview. They said it was a professional interview carried out in a robust manner. Emphasised that they have just recently been surveyed as the most trustworthy New Zealand media outlet. It's not an award that they won. I shouldn't say one. But also there's this speculation that perhaps Winston Peters has breached or at least gone against the spirit of the Radio New Zealand Act, which directs ministers not to tell or give editorial direction to RNZ, and tell it what to do in its programming or how it should handle its editorial decision making. So it's an interesting one for sure. Thomas Coughlan certainly thought that he had potentially gone against the spirit or the letter of that act.
Yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. Right, you talked earlier on about the twins
who cut
across each other's sentences. No, well, that was okay.
It's harder than it sounds, honestly. They've been practicing for some time.
This is not the only bizarre media clip you wanted to highlight this week. There is another from the Wellington mayoralty race.
Mayoralty race. Do you want me to say that? I didn't. No, I was a bit late, I think.
Yeah, good.
Wellington News Talk ZB reporter Ethan Manera interviewed Wellington councilor Ray Chung earlier this week. I think it was last week, after Mayor Tory Whānau criticised him, Ray Chung, for skipping a council meeting to meet with his donors. He's running for mayor. He was meeting with his donors. The story is angled around Chung calling Whānau full of shit. But it seems that he may not have actually wanted to say that about the mayor. He didn't know that he was saying that on the record.
Yes, right. Classic. Right. So how did this make it to the story then?
Well, the reporter Ethan Manera posted the audio of their exchange, and it's definitely revealing of how the shit sausage got made, so to speak. So this is how it started.
What do you make of that comment?
She's full of shit.
She's full of shit?
Yeah.
So that's how it started, and it seems that Chung immediately regretted that response after being pressed by Manera.
Do you think that's an appropriate comment to make about the mayor?
Yeah, she's full of shit.
Yeah.
No, that's my comment to you. I can say, the official comment I can say is that it's an unfair comment.
Well,
yeah.
You just said that on the record, though.
Well, if you want to publish that, then publish it.
Well, as it turns out, he did want to publish it. and did in fact publish it.
You've got no one to blame but yourself as an experienced politician.
Yeah,
everything's on the record unless you explicitly establish at the start of the conversation.
And Ethan Manera establishes that he knew that he was being recorded, that he knew that he was speaking to a journalist. So it's quite strange. Ray Chung has been in the council for some time. It seems surprising that he would still be doing this sort of thing. Maybe it's revealing. Maybe he has gotten away with this kind of thing in the past. Just saying to a journalist, "Oh, no, I don't want to say it like that. I want to say it a bit differently." Ethan Manera obviously was not willing to acquiesce to that request. It will definitely be something that he's going to have to learn pretty snappily, and especially if he's going to become the mayor as he wants to be.
It sort of reminded me a little bit of the, was it Thomas Mead, the TVNZ reporter Thomas Mead, and Rob Penny, the Crusaders coach?
Oh, yes.
That was more of a hot mic kind of thing, though.
And Wayne Brown, after News Hub Nation interviewed him as well, saying that he was going to stick pictures of Simon Wilson to the urinal. Yes. Sorry for Simon for raising that one again. Those are both hot mics. You are on the record and talking to me right now, and you are giving me a comment, even different.
Yeah. What have you thought, actually, while we're on the topic of the coverage of the Wellington mayoralty race in general? It's quite exciting.
Yeah, Andrew Little entering the contest. And I thought Thomas Coughlan, again, I'm mentioning him, he did some good reporting going inside how Labour, they almost tacitly backed they backed Tory Whānau last time around.
Because Paul Eagle stood as an independent, didn't he?
Yeah, there was some people, maybe there was some tacit backing from some Labour members of the Tory Whānau campaign, and it talked about how they went away from her and went behind Andrew Little instead, and it's really good reporting from Thomas Coughlan. I was less convinced, I have to say, by an opinion piece by the Post National Affairs editor Andrea Vance saying that, among other things, it was talking about Andrew Little, but it said in it that Tory Whānau has no record to speak of. And now, I have to object to that. The Post has done pretty exhaustive coverage of the city's cycle lane rollout, its district plan change, and it seems that Tory Whānau is both flooding the city with townhouses and cycle lanes and massively changing everything, while also leaving no record to speak of. I kind of think if she's saying she has no record to speak, it's sort of like Schrodinger's mayor.
Schrodinger's
She's both doing nothing and everything at once. I don't know how she's doing it. I think the Post needs to pick a lane. It's having it both ways.
That's very funny. All right, just before we go, Hayden, we've got a couple of minutes left. Shall we talk about this property investment story?
Yeah, RNZ had a story today. It was a bit of a sob story for property investors, saying that this is a headline, pain for property investors as renting listing levels hit decade high, and it contains an incredible quote from the property investment coach. That's a real job. His name is Steve Goody. He said it's classic oversupply. We added so many houses to the market that we have too many homes and renters have so many options. And now, disclaimer here, this is by a journo who does a lot of good work, including one today about a dodgy landlord renting out a house not fit for human habitation. But I just don't think that we would get these sorts of stories angled this way in any other consumer sector. Like, what if Aldi entered the supermarket market and we had stories saying supermarket owners sad about the oversupply of food and competition, lamenting the fact that they had to drop prices. And in that case, we would always side with the consumer, wouldn't we? Or we would always give the perspective of the consumer, but I'm not sure that the renters were even mentioned in the story. They didn't even feature.
Really? All right. Okay.
There are so many house price stories which are told exclusively from the perspective of these property investors, where renters aren't even treated as like a group with the stake in the action. They're the ones that are getting a bargain here.
I guess on the business side of things, Stu Donovan, great surname, had an interesting quote on this, didn't he?
Yeah, this is a good one. New Zealand has had a housing shortage for so long it has fostered a cohort of entitled property owners and landlords whose businesses can't survive normal market conditions, in which occupants and tenants have a modicum of choice. He said, we need to weed these businesses out, he's saying. Look, we're so used to not having competition. Need to be exposed to the harsh rigours of the market.
We didn't even have time to discuss cyclones. Maybe next time. Thank you, Hayden.
Thanks, Emil.